I give modern first-person shooters a pretty hard time. My overall impression from years of playing them is that they're typically uninspired safe bets that do very little to expand or improve upon their existing formula of hide and shoot gameplay and offer a pretty uninteresting narrative that is also somehow a weird glorification of war and militarization that makes their core player base of ages 9 and up realize guns are the coolest thing in the world, and also that killing unspecified Middle Eastern or Russian terrorists is the calling of any hero. All of this wrapped in what is really the true draw of the game, which is the multiplayer component where you pay extortionate prices to unlock anime girl skins for your guns and get called racial slurs by middle-aged men with kids. I mean, I should know. I've played Warzone. I'm pretty sure everyone I've ever met has played Warzone, but not a single one of them, myself included, knew about that one mission where you can't physically shoot Captain Price, but you can absolutely try to shoot the baby. What boggles my goddamn brain so much is that they're so fucking popular. Activision publishes essentially the same game every year, and it sells like premium gamer girl bathwater every single time. So in a predictable, yet poetically tragic fashion, Titanfall 2 did pretty badly when it released in 2016. Titanfall 2 has been on my radar for a little while, but even though I got it on PS Plus back in December 2019, I never really got around to playing it. This is partly because even though I'd heard it was good, I'd also heard it was a first-person shooter, and partly because I'm currently partway through 10 games already. But when I finally downloaded it and gave it a try, something weird happened. I couldn't stop playing it. Titanfall 2 opens with a military training simulation, and as much as I didn't listen to or care about anything that was said in that opening segment, it was so much more fun than I thought it would be. By the time I had got to the gauntlet, I was hooked. Trying to beat my time over and over reminded me of playing Modern Warfare when I was 12, except this gauntlet, with its wall running and sliding, actually required skill in terms of its movement and aiming mechanics, and not just a decent short-term memory and a hair trigger. I ended up doing it so much that I got put in the hard difficulty setting, and as much as I felt I didn't belong there, I think leaving it like that was one of the best decisions I could have made. Before I go any further, I'm just going to point out the obvious and say there will be spoilers for the story and more importantly, the gameplay of Titanfall 2. I'm not sure how much I'm going to spoil, seeing as though I haven't written the rest of this script yet, but I'll absolutely be discussing what I think are its best and most intense moments. Aside from the gauntlet, Titanfall 2 doesn't really start out all that great. You don't have a jump kit, so you can't do any of the cool wall runs that you've been practicing, and it's pretty much your standard FPS, but thankfully your mentor/superior officer dies pretty quickly and leaves you his jump kit and his robot buddy BT in his will. Really, as will become apparent, it's such a well-designed game that it's obvious the beginning section is there to get you accustomed to the enemies and the shooting mechanics, before it throws in the movement stuff as well. Once I got the jump kit, everything changed. I've discussed Titanfall 2 previously, and the quality of its movement mechanics made me make a whole video about them, but I really feel like it can't be said enough how much fucking fun this game is. Even as someone who analyzes games to death as they're playing them, I feel like Respawn knew exactly what I was thinking at every second of my journey. There is a perfect balance between platforming and gunplay, and you never get the opportunity to get sick of one or the other. And then once you get BT back up and running, you have Titan-based gunplay added to the mix, and alternating between the three with a little bit of dialogue keeps the whole game fresh. The entire time I was playing, I felt like it was a masterclass of textbook game design. It really reminded me of playing a Valve game or a Mario game in the way that the complexity and ideas slowly ramp up in intensity over time. The first few times you wall run, there's ground beneath you in case you drop, and then slowly the wall running gets more and more complicated, and you need to jump from one wall to the other to progress, or wall run after jumping from a moving platform, or wall run across a sideways prefab, so you're actually ground running. I've talked about how amazing it is to throw away the standard of first-person shooters and, instead of hiding behind conveniently placed walls, encourage the flowing movement that this game nails so perfectly. On hard, this game was extremely difficult for me, and I died a hell of a lot, but I'm no stranger to death, and the level of difficulty just made my clutch as fuck, crazy messy sliding wall running gameplay, where I needed to kill everyone in as perfect way as possible, so much more fun. Instead of spending more time hiding, which would be the key to victory in most shooters on higher difficulties, I felt the difficulty forced me to use the abilities I had to keep constantly on the move and out of enemy gunfire, only staying behind cover for brief moments to reload, just to run back out again and shotgun the next enemy I got close to. I've tried to not talk about this next level for as long as possible, and I really thought I was done talking about this game after I spoke about its excellent movement mechanics. I knew it was a great game, but then I played Effect and Cause. Effect and Cause is a bit like those levels you get in every game, where you think it's been good until that point, and then about halfway through the developers come along and give you a time travel device, which perfectly complements the mechanics the game has taught you so far, and it changes up the gameplay whilst also pushing you to your limits and making you think about two separate time zones at once. In fact, it's exactly that. I mean, only in games would you get the button prompt, press L1 to time travel. Effect and Cause, and more specifically the time gauntlet itself, really encapsulates every single aspect about Titanfall 2 which I love. In every other game, it feels like the time travel would be an extremely situational special move, which probably killed most of the enemies near you, but had no other use than that. In Titanfall 2, you're given absolute freedom over the device, with only a short cooldown on it, and without changing how the game is played at all, it adds a new massive amount of depth and complexity to an already deeply engaging movement system. Similar to every other mechanic in the game, it is introduced slowly, with its only real use to open doors and solve environmental puzzles at first. Although I found it quite effective in combat while fighting soldiers in the past, to travel to the present and run behind them, then travel back to the past and watch them shit themselves. It really makes you feel like an unstoppable badass as you realize what it must be like to have one guy take out an entire facility and seemingly disappear and reappear at random in different places, while running and sliding all around the room. Then I entered a room with some elevators, and the game threw me a real curveball. In one of the most inspired moves in game design, it released a shitload of troops from the elevators in the past, and a shitload of prowlers from the vents in the present. Running and jumping and sliding and shooting in Titanfall 2 feels like a chaotic maelstrom, and has my brain firing on all cylinders at the best of times, but the mental gymnastics needed to keep track of two separate fights in two separate time zones at once was hilarious. I died so many times because I switched time zones to reload after emptying my shotgun, like I had done previously, and ended up dying because I jumped right next to a prowler. Yes, I could have stayed in one time zone and took my time, but I had an indescribable amount of fun switching between time zones during slides and wall runs like a maniac, and time traveling to dodge enemies to shoot prowlers to then travel back and shoot the first guy from behind the head. I can't remember a time when I've died as much or been as completely absorbed in a game as I have during those fights. Like it required so much focus, I completely forgot the world around me existed, and when I finished the mission and looked around the room, I spent 5 minutes feeling weird that I wasn't constantly switching time zones in real life. The mission doesn't end at the elevator fight, and continues to build on the time travel mechanic by making you use it during platforming sections, whilst also having enemies to deal with, and ending in a shit show of a time travel fight where I ended up dying about 50 more times. Then the game once again proves its genius, and throws the time travel mechanic away forever. After I finished the time travel mission, I felt like doing a video entitled, Titanfall 2 has one of the greatest missions ever, or something like that. But before I got to talk about that one mission in particular, I completed the whole game, and even though Effect and Cause is still the best mission in the game for me, it really took beating the entire thing for me to realise just how well designed the game is. The more I played the game, the more I felt like it really was designed exactly how a Mario game would be. In every other game, that time travel mechanic could really be the entire thing, but in Titanfall 2, it's discarded before the player has even the slightest chance to get bored with it. In later levels, when you get the power bank laser and the absolutely badass aimbot gun, they are slowly developed and then thrown away in exactly the same way, and that is the same strategy behind 90% of Mario levels and mechanics. They introduce a mechanic that could realistically be an entire game, like this Luigi's Mansion based flashlight block, and then slowly ramp up the difficulty and complexity of using it, for it to be completely thrown away afterwards. I don't really even want to know the amount of time and effort that went to coming up with and effectively balancing the insane and seemingly overpowered bullshit Titanfall 2 lets you do, while still having the game be fun, but Respawn absolutely nailed it. It's like they took everything people love about shitty CGI action films and turned it into a perfectly designed game where the interactivity makes all the ridiculous explosions and giant robot fights fun. I've seen bits of this game before, and it absolutely does not give justice to the amount of fun it is to play. Basically, I just can't stop talking about how well designed Titanfall 2 is, and that really is the thing that stuck out to me most while I played it. The absolutely perfect pacing of interchanging between wall running and beautiful lights and Titan fights and humour and crazy power-ups and baseball, which is set within a super streamlined, completely fillerless 8 or so hours. Every mission in its area being beautiful, unique, and completely memorable all in their own way, with new and interesting developments to the core gameplay mechanics at a constant and ever-increasing rate, leading to an excellent climax at the end of each mission, and also the finale of the game itself. Even the almost completely hidden difficulty options, where if you stand next to a platforming section for long enough, you'll get a ghost to show you how to do it, and if you stand around a normal area long enough, it will give you the option to ask BT for directions. I'm honestly not sure whether they playtested the shit out of this game, or whether every single idea came to them in a dream as a message from Miyamoto himself. I feel like the only way I can really describe it is as the embodiment of fun. Every detail and every moment feels like it's exactly as it should be, and I can't think of a single thing that I would improve from a design perspective. I thought I wouldn't care about the story at all, and I still can't remember whether I was fighting with the ICM or the militia, or whether they're even two different factions, but I really felt the bond grow between Cooper and BT, and kind of grew to love that big old lump of metal in the time we spent together. The Titan fights were a lot of fun, but I really think it speaks to the design of the core gameplay when I say that I enjoyed sliding and wall running as a pilot even more. Thank you to Respawn for making this definitive guide on fun. Thank you to BT for sneaking into my heart, and thank you for watching. Cheers.